My name is Katie Datz, and I am joining here today as the moderator from Lexington, Virginia at ODK's headquarters. I have a couple of suggestions before we begin our session. Typically, I would tell you to mute yourself, but you are already muted since we are streaming this session. If you do have any questions, just pop those in the chat and I will be more than happy to answer them or invite our guest presenters to share their comments. We will have an evaluation in Event Mobi that will be available after the session, and we would love for you to complete that. And if this session is not what you're hoping for, you may leave at any time. It's my privilege and honor to introduce to you our two guests today. Dr. Jennifer Cable and Dr. Steve Bissessi are coming to us from Spider Country. Dr. Jennifer Cable is a professor of music at the University of Richmond, where she coordinates the vocal studies program. Her current research considers the role of women amateur musicians on early 20th century American arts culture and the positive impact of traditional Chinese medicine. Jennifer is also a certified teacher for the Koru, I'm probably not saying that exactly right, mindfulness program, and is involved in campus outreach centered on mindfulness and meditation. And she's a proud member of ODK. And Dr. Steve Bissessi has served as the Vice President for Student Development at the University of Richmond since 2006. In his current role, he oversees offices who work collaboratively to create a dynamic campus community, offer services for healthy living, and provide learning resources that build on the classroom experience. A 1982 initiate of the University, of William and Mary, Steve is the current ODK faculty advisor for the Epsilon Circle. Steve has a long history with our organization. He's received both the Cheryl M. Hogle Distinguished Service Award and the Rourke Meritorious Service Award. He went on to serve as ODK's national president for extension from 1998 to 2006, at which time he was elected national president and served in that role through 2010. Dr. Bissessi has also served as a member of the ODK Foundation Board of Trustees, and he currently holds the distinction of Trustee Emeritus. So thank you both, Steve and Jennifer, for being with us today. We are honored to have you and look forward to learning how we can be mindful and present.
Thank you. We're going to start by sharing our screen and just say a bit about our presentation. Welcome today. It's a pleasure for us both to be with everyone. We wanted you to see how we're going to move through this afternoon session. We're going to, in just a moment, start with a short breath awareness exercise. We'll then move on to looking at mindfulness practice in the United States, a little bit of the science behind the positive benefits of mindfulness practice. Then we'll look at what our Student Life Office of Student Life has been doing for mindfulness campus initiatives. Then we'll look at faculty staff mindfulness campus initiatives. Then we'll have another moment of mindfulness practice. We'll do one of the pillars of traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong. We'll practice a bit of Qigong, and then we'll end with some questions and comments.
Thank you. And we're so happy to be with you all today, Dr. Cable and I. I want to just give a little introduction into our session. The term mindfulness appears frequently in higher education student-centered programming, reflecting the concerted efforts of numerous campuses to forge a culture of personal awareness and wellness in college-age students. The need for a focused enterprise in this area is significant. According to a 2018 Time magazine article, record numbers of college students are seeking treatment for depression and anxiety, with schools unable to keep up with demand. While experts agree that an emphasis on wellness is beneficial for our students and ourselves, most of us have little training or experience in helping our student population to access contemplative practices which can aid them in lessening emotional strain and tension. Add to this the already troubling situation, a world that is caught up in the grip of COVID-19, rendering even the simplest of actions fraught with worry about the virus and its transmission. So this presentation will focus on the efforts of the University of Richmond and how we have nurtured mindfulness programs as part of our student development work, and also through programs for faculty and staff. Leadership efforts on our campus focus on the work of those who champion the initiative for a new well-being center on our campus, and also share details of faculty and staff efforts in bringing mindfulness practice into our campus community through multiple pathways. This presentation will also offer a short background into the development of mindfulness practice in the US, share data from studies about the benefits of meditation, and highlight several practices which can assist us in our mindfulness journey. So how can a campus embrace mindfulness practices? And how can we embrace our campus leadership roles through a mindfulness lens? We'd like to begin our presentation today with a short breath awareness meditation, just to allow us to settle in, bring our focus to our breath, and take a moment to allow our minds to quiet and our bodies to be still.
So friends, I have the joy of leading us in a breath awareness meditation, very short breath awareness meditation. So I invite you to settle into your chairs, and let's take a moment just to focus on our breath, and we'll come into this space together. If you're comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes, settling back into your chair. Perhaps your feet are on the floor, solidly on the floor. As we take a moment, eyes closed or open, I'm going to close mine. Let's see if we can bring just a little bit of attention to our breath. Maybe having our hands open on our laps, fingers interlaced, or just maybe our palms facing up to the ceiling. Let's take three nice inhale and exhale, just to expand our chests. As we take that nice breath, feeling gratitude for the wonder of our bodies, for the wonder of our breath. One more nice inhale. And exhale. As we continue our gentle breathing, let's see if we can soften the muscles of our face. Loosening up your eye muscles, cheeks, and jaw. With each exhalation, allowing tension to release from the body. Traveling down from our jaw, checking in to see if our neck has any tension. Let's settle on our shoulders. And again, with a few nice inhale and exhale, relax those shoulders, perhaps with each exhale, letting those shoulders drop just a little bit more. Now moving on, as we settle into the chair, see if you can sink even a little deeper into the chair, letting your lower back relax, hips relax, thighs and knees and feet relax. As we come to the end of this very short breath awareness meditation, let's do 3 more nice inhale and exhale. And with each exhale, allowing more relaxation to come into the body, freeing ourselves from tension. With one more nice exhalation. Thank you so much for joining us in that breath awareness meditation. Before we look specifically at the mindfulness initiatives on University of Richmond's campus, let's first review what mindfulness is and how it developed as a practice in the United States. At first, we wanted to at least define mindfulness, which we thought would be helpful for so many of us. So first is Daniel Siegel, who is a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA School of Medicine and executive director of the MindSight Institute. Dr. Siegel says that mindfulness in its most general sense is about waking up from a life on automatic and being sensitive to novelty in our everyday experiences. Instead of being on automatic and mindless, mindfulness helps us awaken. And by reflecting on the mind, we are enabled to make choices, and thus change becomes possible. Next is Sharon Salzberg. Sharon is an author, a teacher of Buddhist meditation practices in the West, and she's also one of the co-founders of the Insight Meditation Society. Sharon says mindfulness isn't just about knowing that you're hearing something, seeing something, or even observing that you're having a particular feeling. It's about doing so in a certain way, with balance and equanimity and without judgment. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention in a way that creates space for insight. Next is the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Mindfulness shows us what is happening in our bodies, our emotions, our minds, and in the world. Through mindfulness, we avoid harming ourselves and others. And finally, Sylvia Boorstein. Sylvia is also an author, a psychotherapist, and a Buddhist teacher. Mindfulness is the aware, balanced acceptance of the present experience. It isn't more complicated than that. It is opening to or receiving the present moment, pleasant or unpleasant, just as it is, without either clinging to it or rejecting it. Three streams have influenced the development of mindfulness in the West. The first, mindfulness is a movement that developed from Asia, that developed in Burma or Myanmar in the 19th century for non-monastic Buddhist practitioners who wanted to develop some kind of meditation practice in their daily lives. Those practices were passed on to a few Westerners who were Buddhist monastics, who then taught this kind of meditation to Western students in the early 1960s and 70s who went to Asia seeking meditation methods. Some of these early Western practitioners did not take monastic vows, but learned mindfulness in retreats and brought it back to the US. Sharon Salzberg is one of the leaders who did do that study in Asia in the 60s and 70s. Next is Thich Nhat Hanh. The second stream comes to us from his amazing work. Thich Nhat Hanh was driven out of Vietnam by the war and emigrated to France, where he established Plum Village, which is still in practice in France. He settled there permanently in the 70s and began to teach both in Europe and in the US. He teaches a simple way of bringing the mind to the present moment experience, not only while sitting in meditation, but also in daily life. And finally, we have John Kavitzin, who earned his PhD in molecular biology from MIT. Kavitzin was interested in how mindfulness meditation might be helpful for people experiencing chronic pain. He brought meditation and
experiencing some trouble
into the hospital setting to teach patients how to manage fear and anxiety brought about by chronic pain. He had great success with this work and developed mindfulness
so you
practices.
are in event movie and in...
I'm sorry.
That could be it. Okay.
I'll keep going. He had great success with this work and developed mindfulness practices for nurses, doctors, patients, and their families. From there, he developed the technique called mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, which some of you may have participated in, and began to work with people who had psychological stress, not just physical pain. Kavitzin then began a scientific study of the results of these practices, which has sparked a tremendous interest from the science community in studying the benefits of mindfulness practice. In short, in our short breath awareness meditation, our brains were positively impacted. Let's take a quick look at the science as it relates to the positive benefits of mindfulness in meditation. Quote, "There's ample empirical evidence for an asymmetry in the way that adults use positive versus negative information to make sense of their world. Specifically, across an array of psychological situations and tasks, adults display a negativity bias or the propensity to attend to, learn from, and use negative information far more than positive information." End quote. This comes from a study from 2008 called "Not All Emotions Are Created Equal: The Negativity Bias in Socio-Emotional Development." This capacity to weigh negative input so heavily has likely evolved for a good reason, that is, to keep us safe. Simply put, we more quickly respond to negative stimulus than positive. No wonder our students have trouble seeing the positive side of things and carry the weight of that burden into their learning engagements with us. We, of course, humans like our students, also display a negativity bias and also struggle under the weight of that. Yet, good news, we can change the brain. In a podcast entitled "How to Change Your Brain," broadcast on September 6, 2020, psychologist and mindfulness practitioner Dr. Rick Hansen stated, "The brain is really good at learning from single experiences of worry, hurt, anger, or inadequacy. It takes the repetition of many experiences like gratitude or self-worth to shift from state to trait. People who routinely practice mindfulness, and it may be as little as 5 minutes a day, have improved structure and function in regions of the brain that support improvements in 4 major personal capacities. Number 1, to regulate their attention. Number 2, to be aware of their body and to be more self-aware in general. 3, to be better able to regulate their emotions, their impulses, and their reactions. And number 4, to have a more lighthearted and integrated sense of self." Throughout the podcast, Hansen confirmed that we can change the brain through practice by repeating states, whether practicing the violin or practicing happiness. We can change the brain. We can practice things that are not just external, like the violin, but also internal, states of mindfulness. From a study published in 2014 and shared in The Mindful 20-something by Holly Rogers, we have this result, quote, "Inhabiting the present moment can change your brain. A meta-analysis determined that there are 8 regions of the brain that are altered by meditation practice. These brain regions are important in regulating emotions, improving memory, and increasing attention and awareness. Remarkably, this proves that we can alter the structure of our brain, improving its function in important ways, simply by learning to focus our attention in a particular manner. The authors of the study observed that one of the most interesting results to emerge from the nascent literature on brain structure and meditation is just how few hours of training seem necessary to induce neuroplastic changes. In the same way that exercise can change both the appearance and the strength of our muscles, meditation can change both the structure and the effectiveness of our brains. Sarah Lazar, a neuroscientist at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, has led 2 studies on mindfulness meditation and the brain. In the first study, Dr. Lazar and her team found that long-term meditators had more gray matter in the frontal cortex, which is associated with working memory and executive decision-making. Our cortex shrinks as we get older, making it harder to figure things out and remember things. But in this one region of the prefrontal cortex, 50-year-old meditators had the same amount of gray matter as 25-year-olds. The second study looked at people who had meditated before and a group that began an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program, founded by the man we met earlier, John Kavitzin. For the second group, they found thickening in 4 regions of the brain that involve self-relevance, memory and emotional regulation, perspective taking, and empathy and compassion. The amygdala, the fight or flight part of the brain, which is important for anxiety, fear, and stress, got smaller than the group that went through the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. The change in the amygdala was also correlated to a reduction in stress levels. From the science then, we know that we can change the brain through meditation practice, and just a few minutes of practice at that. Now, let's take a look at the student life campus initiatives that have brought mindfulness and well-being to our campus culture.
So I would like to take you now through an abbreviated version of our university's strategic journey focused on how to make holistic well-being and mindfulness activity one of our core values. And I'm hopeful that by listening to this, this might be helpful as you begin campus initiatives on your campus, regardless of whether it's this particular topic. But based on our institutional data and very targeted research of best practices, we've developed a more holistic view of student well-being and successfully implemented this perspective upon our campus community. We began years ago as we were faced with solving an institutional crisis related to student mental health. Our strategic journey involved leadership from many university constituencies, but most importantly, from our student leaders. Our work has resulted in the introduction of new programs, enhanced services, and we are most proud to share facilities, including a brand new well-being building that showcases our dedication to holistic well-being, both the clinical and the non-clinical, and mindfulness activity. We no longer consider the university only employing a reactive approach to good health, but that we're proactive with regard to well-being, practice, education, and prevention. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the University of Richmond to put it in context. And one of those reasons is as you work with initiatives, you'll compare yourself to similar schools. So the University of Richmond is a top 25 national liberal arts school nestled in the suburbs of the capital city of Richmond, Virginia. We have about 3,000 undergraduate students. We're primary residential. 94% of our students do live on campus. We have about 1,000 graduate students, and we have 5 undergraduate and graduate academic schools. And we're committed to blending the intimacy and excellent teaching of a small college with the academic research and cultural opportunities usually found at larger institutions. Our journey began back in 2009 when we determined that the demand for clinical mental health services would continue to rise. In fact, for 6 years in a row, I had to go to our Planning and Priorities Budget Committee, which is where we get new resources, asking for more resources to provide additional psychologists and psychiatry to meet the growing demand and lessening the wait times. We realize that this is not sustainable, both from a cost perspective and from a student well-being perspective, given our reactive approach year by year. We focused almost solely on meeting clinical demand. In fact, for 10 years running, we were adding more resources to health services from a staffing standpoint, and really nothing else. Fortunately, around this time, the university was beginning to develop a 5-year strategic plan. And that the strategic planning committee that included students were adamant that well-being needed to be a priority in the plan. But those were only words. The challenge to us became, how can we turn the charge into a detailed strategy that would be able to move us beyond the reactive and not just throw more resources at clinical care. So our first step was the development of a small working group focused on studying our health services. We took a look internally at our current efforts. We studied best practices. We went on a road show and visited other institutions. We explored partnerships with students already engaged in proactive educational well-being initiatives. We already had students who had organized as sexual misconduct peer advisors. Our disability services office had developed a group of students that were called disability ambassadors that were out there talking about these kinds of issues. We had interns in our counseling and psychological services office. And in our student health center, which is focused on physical health, we actually had a group called Health Center Bandits that were spreading the benefits of being a good health, nutrition, and preventative care. So we found that our students were engaged proactively, even in some cases more than we as a staff were. So we quickly helped us to develop the momentum to develop strategic ways for us to move from the additive model, which is more clinicians, to the holistic model. This I won't go into detail, but you can just see this graph, and I'm sure at your schools you were seeing this. I just have to believe that, but from 2002 that this graph starts all the way to 2019-20. Back in 2002, our counseling center was seeing 333 patients, unique patients a year. By 2019 and 20, we were over 760 or 80 students. And this, we knew this would continue to grow. And all we were doing was adding clinicians to that. But our hope is that a more proactive approach will work to flatten this kind of curve over the years, and then we'll see less of a need for the clinical care because there will be other ways to handle these kinds of things. So one of the most important things we did was we developed a health and well-being task force, and it was by invitation of our university president. The Health and Wellbeing Task Force was appointed and charged with, quote, guiding the University of Richmond through a collaborative process of comprehensive systems, program and policy development with customized support built upon the University of Richmond's existing student mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention efforts. This task force had 21 members who served for 2-year obligations. There were 5 subgroups: academic affairs. That committee was focused on making sure we blended what happened in the classroom with the co-curricular. A communications group, which was charged with informing our community of the many opportunities that do exist. Our coordination of care, which was ensuring clinical capacity was adequate. Identifying students at risk, which was not letting struggling students fall through the cracks. And general policies and programs. Everyone from our SGA presidents to the chaplain of our university to doctors, nurses, professors were all involved in this task force. And through the work of these subcommittees, it was decided by consensus that we needed to be educated about what it truly means to be a well campus and what are the vital components to that. It is one thing to say you are a well campus or a school committed to well-being, but what does that really mean? So the best decision we ever made was to partner with experts and become a JED campus. I would imagine some of you are JED campuses. JED partners to help your university develop a strategic plan, dividing well-being items into what you must do, what you should do, and what really is not necessary. You get a report card of your progress on a quarterly basis. So a little about the JED Foundation. It was named after Donna and Phil Sato's youngest son, Jed, who they lost to suicide in 1998. JED is leading the way to a comprehensive community-based model of protecting student emotional health and preventing suicide. It works with campus leaders and professionals to create a campus-wide prevention and intervention strategies approach, and advises on best practice both with mental health and well-being programs and services. JED Campus, it's a signature program of the JED Foundation, and it's designed to guide schools through a collaborative process to support and build upon existing mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention programs. They give you key indicators in developing your strategic plan, and I'll just mention them very briefly, but developing life skills, social connectedness, identifying students at risk, seeking help behavior, providing mental health and substance abuse services, crisis management, and restricting access to potentially lethal means. This rolls out to 156 items that are associated with being committed to holistic well-being. And each item is graded as either red, we call it the stoplight approach, either red that you're not doing it and you should be, yellow, you're doing it but you have a ways to go for it to be perfected, or green, you're doing it very successfully. And our task force was very focused on moving us from red to yellow to green. And it's a wonderful way to evaluate your progress. You really feel good about the progress you're making, and also you feel good because you see a number of greens on there and you realize you're doing a lot and you didn't realize how much you were doing. So as a result of our task force and our partnership with JED and our charge by the strategic plan, we felt comfortable putting together our communications and outreach plan. We made presentations to our staff and faculty. We went to the president's cabinet, and we even went to the board of trustees. And I will never forget the October day when I presented with a colleague to the board of trustees, and hours later got a call that a $6 million lead gift was being made for a building that would bring our student health center and our counseling center under one roof. Long-standing dream of mine, but also with a holistic well-being emphasis. So a whole floor of this 3-story building, one floor being the counseling center, one floor being the student health center, a third floor was devoted to holistic well-being. Everything from relaxation to music to art to meditation, mind-body studio, massage, salt therapy, and nutrition and demonstration kitchen. We have a short video we'd like to show you of our new building.
In 2020, the world experienced the impact of a global pandemic. Here at the University of Richmond, classes became virtual. Graduation ceremonies were postponed. Stringent safety guidelines were put into place, and that was just during the first month. These changes have taken a toll, but as always, our community rallied. With our students facing new challenges every day, student health services that support both physical and mental well-being are more important than ever. And thanks to your support, the University of Richmond is able to pioneer a more comprehensive approach to our students' health and well-being. Your gift made it possible to build and open the Well-Being Center, a comprehensive and integrated facility housing all campus healthcare, including the Student Health Center and counseling and psychological services. The Well-Being Center's focus on healthy living and mindfulness is designed to enable students to develop a holistic approach to well-being that will not only serve them while they're on campus, but throughout their lives. Students will now be able to unplug in the Zen garden and reduce stress in the salt therapy room. They can renew themselves in the mind-body studio and rehydrate and refresh in a healthy manner at the Organic Crush Cafe. The Well-Being Center also offers direct access to the Weinstein Center for Recreation. The Well-Being Center builds upon many steps UR has taken in its commitment to wellness and is truly the realization of a long-standing vision. Thank you for recognizing the value of our students' well-being. Your support has been invaluable in helping the University of Richmond create a space that will nurture healthier and happier students for generations to come.
I will just close our journey with this last slide by saying that we know we can't let our guard down. This is an ongoing, what is defined as wellness is going to change, and we need to be on top of that. Everything came together beyond our wildest dreams, and we were lucky, I have to admit, in many cases. But clinical demand has been met. We have many more proactive programs than we used to. We have very much support for our peer education, our students who have been devoted to this. We have faculty involvement in the academic world. And of course, we will, and because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do it, but we will have the grand opening of our new wellbeing building this fall. So we've increased clinical capacity, opened a standalone disability services office, which we did not have. We've implemented a stepped care model, which means we now have other ways for students to deal with stress and anxiety that's not necessarily seeing a clinician. And we ensure long-term stability of our peer organizations because we funded them well and provided them a room in the new building to serve as their base for their outreach to our students.
Thanks, Steve. We'd now like to highlight some of the efforts that the University of Richmond has embraced in nurturing mindfulness and well-being for our faculty and staff, and how that is then shared with our students. In May of 2019, UR hosted a 3-day teacher training session for the Koru Mindfulness program, in which 24 UR faculty and staff participated. I was a part of that group, and in 2020 became a certified instructor of the Koru Mindfulness program. Koru was developed by 2 US psychiatrists, Drs. Holly Rogers and Margaret Maton at Duke University. They took well-known practices from breathing techniques to visualization exercises and guided meditations and applied them to the specific context and challenges of the college environment. The Koru curriculum centers around practical skills that students can use to manage their stress, focus their minds, and gain perspective on issues and challenges that they may be facing. Rogers and Maton developed classes aimed specifically for students and young adults with an emphasis on accessibility, practicality, and immediate results. In 2013, the Center for Koru Mindfulness was established to train others to teach Koru Mindfulness on college campuses. Since fall 2019, I and other UR faculty and staff have regularly taught Koru Basic and Koru 2.0 classes for students at the University of Richmond and beyond. Students sign up for our sessions, which usually the student class is between 6 and 10 students, and each class lasts roughly 75 minutes. Both Koru Basic and 2.0 courses span 4 sessions with students engaging in meditation practice for 10 minutes each day throughout the duration of the course, and hopefully beyond. These are some of the other initiatives which I'll talk about briefly. Beginning with the Mindfulness Initiative. The University of Richmond received a gift from a donor several years ago that was intended to support mindfulness initiatives for faculty and student well-being. The monies have been used in 3 areas: supporting the Koru mindfulness training for faculty, a small grant program for training opportunities with an impact on research and teaching, projects linked to curricular changes and student learning outcomes, and other proposals that bring together academic inquiry and mindfulness broadly conceived, and then third, a speaker series. The wonderful mindfulness coach who works with professional athletes, Mr. George Mumford, visited UR early in 2020, and this was supported by the Mindfulness Initiative. George worked with faculty, staff, and students across his visit with us, engaging with our student athletes as well, which was a first for crossover programming between academics and athletics. While the pandemic has forced us to stop on-campus visits, we look ahead to the fall when we hope we can again have guests join our mindfulness community, both as presenters and as practitioners. We also have a faculty mindfulness learning community. We are now in our third year of that work, and we've grown from meetings across the academic year to expanding into the summer with a summer book club that we started in 2020, focusing on Ruth King's wonderful book, Mindful of Race. Our faculty learning community has participated in bringing guests to campus, such as George Mumford, the former Buddhist monk Hartanto Gunewan, Ram Bhagat, who's teaching mindfulness in the Richmond public school systems, and we're very eager to do some partnering between our University of Richmond students and Richmond public school students engaging through mindfulness practice. And hopefully for fall 2021, we'd love to bring the founders of the Holistic Life Foundation, that's Ali Smith, Atman Smith, and Andres Gonzalez to campus. For 2021, our faculty learning committee's focus has been on offering a space for community and sanctuary from the stresses of the pandemic life and work. We've also continued our discussions related to Ruth King's book, while also considering how we listen to one another with empathy and compassion. I also want to talk just a bit about some of the other things on the slide that's in front of you. Steve has already mentioned the Center for Wellbeing and also connecting to the Weinstein Wellness Center, so where our students are engaging and our entire community is engaging in classes and having many opportunities for mindfulness and working out and so forth. Our students also take non-credit bearing wellness classes, and quite a few of my staff colleagues who teach those courses have embedded mindfulness techniques and practices into those courses. Our campus psychological peer support has developed their Warm line and other CAPS initiatives that are embracing mindfulness practice in addition to their clinical work. Our Office of the Chaplaincy has long been a supporter of our mindfulness initiatives on campus, and they've given a home to some of our faculty learning community mindfulness meetings, which we're hoping we might be moving over to the Wellbeing Center as soon as that has its official opening. But we're very grateful to our Office of the Chaplaincy for their support of mindfulness on our campus. Then many of us offer all kinds of mindfulness initiatives across even the span of a week, let alone an academic year. Mindful Mondays is a meditation practice. The students themselves who have gone through Koru, the Koru program, are now having meditation sessions led by students. We have offered meditation practices through Alumni Affairs, through the Office of Admission, and through our Office of Multicultural Affairs. I also want to take just a moment to talk about the ways in which faculty and staff are bringing mindfulness into the classroom and in my world into the applied studio. Some of us are actually beginning our classes, and of course in applied lessons as well, with either some breath awareness or some embodied meditation. This is movement that we're doing that aligns with our breath. We're not taking a lot of time at the beginning of our classes, but we are taking a few minutes to bring the class together, both in a sense of calm and also through our breath, and if we're moving, also through our movement. Our students really appreciate this effort, and if we ever started a class without it, they'll say, well, wait a second, where's our moment of coming together as a class, either through body work or through meditation. We've also incorporated mindfulness work in helping for collaborative work and in conversations, in-class conversation. I'll give as an example. I had my students do a 3-minute meditation simply to build an intention on being receptive to getting feedback from the other collaborators in their group, and also to build an intention to giving helpful feedback to the group as they were working on a particular project. My students reported that that made the work that they were doing together so much more productive. Just 3 minutes of taking a little time to set that intention, to bring that work into their common goal of working together. And then finally, as a teacher of singing, I use a lot of breath awareness, not just at the start of a lesson to bring us into our bodies and have us ready to sing, but also to help my students combat the sometimes crippling effect of stage fright. My students have found the breath awareness work to be so impactful that they are using now meditation practice before giving presentations in majors very far away from their work in the music building, in job interviews, and even when they're having some challenging conversations with their friends or colleagues. They're finding that breath awareness is really an incredible thing, and it helps them to be more focused and bring a better mindset and a better concentration to the work at hand.
So in preparing for this presentation, we gave some thought to how we will personally bring mindfulness into our leadership roles, and better put, how practice in whatever form helps us in our leadership work in a number of ways. And we share here the benefits of our individual practice in our leadership work, and would be interested in hearing about how your mindfulness practice helps your leadership efforts. Some things that we've instituted are patience, metta meditation, lifting up others whenever possible and being open to new ideas, think before speaking and give care and attention to the words of others, and being able to take a breath before responding, taking that important pause to give space and time prior to responding, particularly in a challenging or heated discussion, or saying that you will get back to that individual rather than just jumping to an answer. Being kind and respecting of your interaction with others. Water the seeds that you want to grow.
Before opening up for questions, let's close our formal presentation today by experiencing embodied meditation through the practice of Qigong. Qigong translated as energy practice. Qigong, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the main pillars of traditional Chinese medicine. Qigong sequences are designed to remove energy blockages from the meridians, maintaining balance and health in the body. In Qigong practice, we align our physical movement with our breath. That is a critical part of Qigong practice. Our movements are also slow and gentle, allowing individuals of all levels of fitness and physical ability to participate in such a way as to receive benefits from the practice. I invite you today to either remain seated or to stand and join me in this very, very short sequence. It can be done either way, sitting or standing. I'll stand, but whatever is more comfortable for you. I know we've been sitting in front of our computers for much of the day, so let's start. Even if we're seated, we can just shake our hands and maybe bounce our shoulders around. If we're standing, we can add our lower body into this too, and shaking out our legs a little bit also, just to bring some energy into the body as we wake ourselves up. Now, from our seated position, or if we're standing, a gentle reminder, we never want to push our bodies beyond how far they want to go. So over the course of this very short sequence, there's no need to push your body further than it's comfortable going. Let's start by looking to the left, a gentle inhale, and then exhaling as we turn our head to center. Keep your knees unlocked, and it's now looking to the right. As you inhale, it can be either through your nose or mouth, whichever is more comfortable to you. Exhaling to center, then tipping head back, Inhale. Exhale to center. And then forward. Inhale. Exhale to center. Let's do that all one more time, please. To the left. Inhale. Exhale to center. To the right. Inhale. Exhale to center. Head back. Inhale. Exhale to center. And then forward. Inhale. Exhale to center. If we're seated, just putting the hands on your lap in front of you. If we're standing, let's have our feet shoulder width apart. Our left arm over the right. We're going to inhale up. And exhale the arms slowly, just letting them float down with our exhale. Keep those knees nice and soft. Don't lock them. Inhale up. Then exhale. As you exhale down this time, see if you can feel those arms stretch out just a little bit more, particularly around the shoulder area. Inhale up. Exhale, out and down. And then let's do it one more time. Inhale up. And exhale, out and down. I imagine many of us still carry backpacks. And for those of us that do, we might find that sometimes I'll turn to the side, our shoulders want to slump a little bit. So this next movement is designed to help to open up the front part of the body. As we're talking about pandemic stress and challenge, we also need to acknowledge that when our emotional state is in pain or in stress, our bodies can show that. And in many ways, as I'm sure you may know from your own body, internalizing stress. But one of those ways is that we tend to come forward. So what this movement does is that it opens up the front part of the body. So if you're standing, feet still shoulder width apart, hands in front as though we're going to shoot a basketball. Make a very gentle fist and inhale, opening up the front of the body. And then with flat palm, exhale, coming forward. Now, as we inhale, pay attention, keep those knees nice and soft. And as we exhale, aligning nicely with our movement. Inhaling, shoulders stay down, nice and relaxed. And exhale, coming forward. Let's do one more. Inhale. And exhale. For friends that are seated, as we bend forward, just come forward from your hip socket and as far forward as comfortable. That might be far enough, which is fine. As we're coming up, just a note of paying attention to how our body can move most efficiently. As we're coming up, we want to come up one vertebra at a time. Shoulders, neck, and head are last. That's a very important part of this exercise. If we're standing, we'll go as far forward as we feel comfortable going. So feet are now together. Hands are interlaced. We're going to inhale up, stretch the top, and then we'll exhale our arms out and down. Friends, remember, we're bending from our hip joint, not from the waist. Then as we're over here, let's release those fingers. Take a nice breath in. Nice exhale, then a slight bend to the knee, and we're going to slowly roll up as we inhale. And again, reminding everybody, as we're coming up, shoulders, neck, and head are last. For those of us that carry much of our tension and stress in our necks, and maybe going up into the head, the way coming up from that stretch, whether seated or standing, is really important to protecting the neck. Let's do this one more time, and I'll do it from the side this time. Inhale up. Exhale out. Whether seated or standing, you're bending from the hip, not from the waist. One slight breath here as we let our heads hang loosely.
And then slight bend to the knees, slowly rolling up. One vertebra at a time. Shoulders, neck, and head are last.
My students particularly love this next movement, so I want to share this with everybody today. Let's refer to it as a self-hug. Whether seated or standing, I invite you to put arms out in front, palms facing each other. We're now going to flip over so the backs of our hands are facing each other. Then crossing one hand over the other, interlinking our fingers, and then bending the fists down and circling around, and then bringing that up against our chest. Let's stay here, whether eyes open or closed, whether seated or standing. And let's do 3 nice, slow breaths here, focusing on tension in the body, but understanding that we're also giving ourselves this nice self-hug. So let's have 3 nice breaths. Perhaps with each exhale, feeling the shoulders drop. And then at the end of our last breath, bringing our linked fingers back out, twisting back around, and then releasing them. Thank you for joining me in that very short Qigong practice.
So as we wrap up today, I just want to say we urge any of you who would like more information about our mindfulness and well-being initiatives at UR, University of Richmond, or information about Qigong Koru or other mindfulness practices, please reach out to us directly. And thank you so much for joining our presentation today.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you both for being with us today. This has been a joy. We've gotten several comments throughout just saying thank you, how helpful the mindfulness meditation we did at the beginning was for all of us, and how much we enjoyed the meditation that you just led us through. So thank you. Additionally, we have secured a car, and we will all be at the grand opening of the Wellness Center this fall.
Good, good.
You're all invited.
Efforts, or maybe we won't join the efforts, but we will at least be there. So thank you so much for being here and sharing what you're doing. This has been a joy.
Thank you.
If questions come up, we're easy to find, so please don't hesitate to send us an email or to ask us about any of the things that we've got going on. We'd be delighted to be of any help.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.